the show, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you listening, jumping in the conversation and the comments. Looking forward to some more interactions with everybody. Got Chaz Wolf in the house with us today. I'm excited about today's conversation. Just wanted to bring him in. And Chaz, give us kind of a quick 30, 60 second. Tell us what you're doing, where you came from, kind of the background, your story.
Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur. Been in business since I was, really a kid, but bought my first big boy business when I was 24, turning 25. Did kind of like the franchise thing for a while. I'm still kind of a part of that original portfolio of businesses that I had, but I've gotten into real estate, gotten into construction. I've been in, all different types of real estate and construction. One of my more recent endeavors over the last probably 3 or 4 years has been helping other business owners grow their businesses, but also grow their families. We do some coaching in the realm of business and marriage and teaching kids entrepreneurship and helping the family dynamic grow and thrive, especially for entrepreneur families.
That's awesome.
We think it's pretty unique. So.
What do you think is the number one takeaway that you've seen with that work in the last few years? What do you think is the number one thing that you've seen change with people or the relationships that you've built?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that there's a distinction between a business owner and then a business owner who is family oriented.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily maybe know that. I guess I kind of probably thought all business owners were like me.
Yeah.
And my story is more of like the one who went all in on business. And, I didn't sacrifice everything for business, but that probably what it, like if I was just being honest, we weren't on the brink of divorce. I wasn't a terrible dad, but in comparison to my potential and to who I am today and who I want to become, I was nowhere near any of those things. And so I was just all in on business. And I think that that's where a lot of business owners are. They're obsessed. They're all in, and which that's how God made us, I think. But not all of us learn to flip that switch of obsession towards our spouses and towards our kids and towards our health and towards our faith. And, like when you really think about it, it's like, man, there's kind of a lot that I have to manage here for success if I really want like a holistically successful life. And so it just takes a lot of intention and a lot of obsession and drive. And so what I've seen is, or at least maybe a filtering process has been like, okay, I don't want to just work with the guy who wants to just make more money or the gal who wants to triple her business.
Yeah.
I want that too, but I also want to have all these other things. And so working with those types of entrepreneurs is unique because there's this down to earthness, there's a humility level, there's a coachability, there's a, hey, I want to be better for my kids and my grandkids. Like not everybody talks and things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a different mindset for sure. I would totally agree with you on that. What do you think is the number one thing that most business owners miss in that whole balance piece, right? So you're talking about creating that life where you're doing and succeeding well in all of those different areas. What do you think is the one principle or the one thing that most people miss with that particular equation?
Yeah, I think that my first initial reaction when I hear the word balance is that it doesn't exist.
Right.
And I think most people realize that actually. Yeah. They're like, a real entrepreneur hears that and then kind of goes, ugh, But there's a huge nuance there because when we hear that, it challenges like our all-inness, our obsession. And so I think that most people think it's either I'm like this soft, not obsessed, everything's balanced, kumbaya singing person, or I'm like all in, I'm obsessed, I'm driven, I'm ambitious, but like that only applies to my business.
Right.
And so somewhere in the middle for me, I was wanting to make sure that I could be all in and obsessed, but in all the areas.
Right.
And so for me, the answer was just raising the intentionality or the obsession in the other areas, not necessarily lowering my obsession with making money or growing a business or helping others. It just I needed to be who I genuinely am. Yeah. But over here and over here and over here and over here.
Right.
And I mean, that's a pretty like unrelatable life.
Right.
To be honest. Yeah. So I think the missing piece that you're asking for is like, they see success as like this guy or gal who's gone all in and they've given up everything, family, health, everything. And they have a bunch of money. Yeah. Like, well, I don't want that. And then over here seems like soft and like, it doesn't make me excited. Yeah. And so then what do? Well, they just kind of then just don't do anything or they live average, right? As opposed to saying, no, you can have permission to go all in. Yeah. But actually what it takes is that same level of intentionality and intenseness. Yeah. But in all these other areas, that just feels so unrelatable because my weekends aren't hanging with the guys. Right. My evenings aren't watching football. Right. And I'm not saying that I'd never do anything fun.
Right.
I'd much rather do something fun with a guy like you, though.
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
Because the conversation is just different.
Yeah.
With the people who think like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think one of the things that you hit on there was the intention, right? And I think the intentionality, putting purpose behind the things that you're doing. One of the things that stuck with me from Grant's 10X book was the whole concept of you're 10Xing whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
It's whether or not you're making the conscious decision to 10X in the areas that you actually want to increase in your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was something that, like, just reading through that and thinking through that in my own life, like thinking about, okay, what are the ramifications of that in business? What are the ramifications of that? I think it's just as much about the intentionality, because some of those things can be extremely intense, right?
Yeah,
if you're putting the intention into them and you're being, purposeful and thoughtful and doing the things that you need to be doing, that can be just as intense as winning in business and, falling forward and all that stuff. So,
I think they're components, right? So like the builder, that intense, personality that we're referencing, both of us are, that even though we have totally two different personalities, when you're an entrepreneur and you're a problem solver and you kind of become obsessed with this idea of winning, then it's like, okay, well, so like doing a deal or buying a business or whatever over here gives me a certain dopamine hit, and playing Uno with my son, it's Uno.
Yeah.
But when I reframed that these are just components, the game is whatever.
Yeah.
But these are moments, and then the individual components of the game or mindset or whatever I get to build into my son.
Yeah.
Just like over here, I get to build into team members or, strategize around creatives on marketing or whatever. It's the components of how to play the game that get us fired up. And so when I reframed not only the intentionality and intenseness, but it's like, okay, no, actually I can use all of these circumstances with the same intensity, with the same intentionality, but like, what's the end result here of this Uno game?
Right.
Oh, this is my son, and I want to teach him how to think.
Yeah.
As opposed to over here, it's like, I want to close a deal, or I want to teach my new sales guy how to close, or, the end result is still winning.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. And at that point, like, you're being intentional about what you're building, both in your family, and in your business. Cause, like, to your point, you could teach, a guy on your team, like, how to sell and how to close. But at the same time, if you're teaching your son how to strategically think about things and look through a different lens and think about, okay, how do I, even in a game, right? It sounds ridiculous to say that, but at the same time, it's like you're investing in that whole thought process for how he's going to move forward in life. Right.
Yeah.
And that's a huge deal. I agree. I think there's a lot of business owners that feel like they have to sacrifice both. And I think there's a piece that you can come to terms with, like, to say, I'm going to be intentional about both. Right. I'm going to win as much as possible in both. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do everything I can, to get to that place. And so it's like, we all have to find those things that we want to put intention into, and I think that the way that you guys have defined that in the group is really key, because it touches on all the points that, in life, I need to understand money. I need to understand my health. I need to understand business. I need to understand relationships, and I need to be intentional about all of those different parts of life. And how do I move that forward? Right.
Yeah. You just said something that was really, I think, like, for the listener, if they're paying close attention, we've used this word intentionality. It's like, okay, cool. We can define what that means. But you said something underneath that, which was basically you become intentional about the things that are important.
Yeah.
And so I think that for the business owner, a lot of us were, 85% says the stat that we're first gen money.
Right.
Right. So which means that we came from nothing, most likely, or at least not of, like, huge background money wise. So with that being said, our main focus and all inness has been, survival, one, but then, like, okay, we're getting sort of a taste of how to live and freedom and maybe a little bit of luxury. And so it's like, that pull, that magnetic force towards those things has always been important to us, most likely because how we started.
Right.
And then on top of that, we're just naturally driven individuals. And so those two things kind of like go together well.
Right.
And so we have to put that same level of importance on our marriages or on our, relationships, like our kids, like you're describing, on our health, and so on our faith. I think that, each component, it's like, oh yeah, I should spend time doing that, or I should spend time thinking about that, or whatever it is, whether that's, again, at the gym or in my quiet time in the morning or with my wife or whatever. Like, I categorize it, I prioritize it, and I go, okay, here's what I say is important to me.
Yeah.
Do my actions line up?
Yeah. And how am I showing up in that? Yeah.
And how am I showing up in that?
Yeah.
And the winning part of it isn't necessarily like, okay, well, being perfect. You don't have to be a 10 in all areas to be winning.
Yeah.
I think it's about defining where you are, being honest about it.
Yeah.
And even if it's a 1 or 2, and then recognizing, okay, well, what does it take to not necessarily go to a 10, but what does it take to go to a 3
Yeah.
and then doing it.
Well, and yeah, what's interesting with that too is I think that there are a lot of people like misconstrue, because we talk about business owners in general and entrepreneurs in general. We talk about winning. We talk about, all these things. And I think a lot of people conflate that with winning and losing in sports and winning and losing in, whatever the thing is, right?
Right.
But the thing that most people I don't think understand is that what winning looks like for you is not necessarily what winning looks like for
Exactly.
me versus somebody else down the road, right?
And that's not soft. Everybody gets a trophy talk. Right?
Correct.
That's just your lens of success.
Correct. Exactly. And I think everybody's lens has a little bit different shift or a little bit different, because what you may prioritize or what you may, be the thing that you focus on in life, those things can change for people over time, one, but they're going to change from individual to individual, right?
Yeah.
Because like for one person, impacting the most people they can may be the most important thing.
Yeah.
For another person, getting to a certain dollar amount may be one of the most important things for them. And it's not to say that any of those things are right or wrong or bad or whatever,
Right.
but it's going to be different per person. And to your point, it is not a thing of, it's not the attitude of, everybody gets a participation trophy and, whatever, right? 100%. It comes down to the best way to frame competition is you're not in competition with anybody else. You're in competition with yourself in the future.
Yeah.
Are you going to be a better person 5 years from now than you were now?
Right.
Because of the changes and decisions that you made, and it's going to line up with who you feel you are as a person internally, right?
Yeah.
And it's not the whole like, oh, I showed up so I get a trophy. It's I am gradually becoming better, and I'm becoming the thing that I want to be the most.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of deal.
Yeah. That energy is so powerful. One, to be able to see that yourself.
Yeah.
It just kind of hits you and you're like, okay, I'm made for more. I could do better. There's room here.
Mm-hmm.
And what that should do is it should get you excited.
Yeah.
And not like, oh no, like I've failed or I haven't come as far as I should have. Right.
Yeah.
It should be like, oh wow, like I get to keep playing the game.
Yeah.
And in fact, actually the game never ends.
Right.
Right. And every time you hit 10, it either starts over or you just 11 and then 12. And like the game just keeps going.
Right.
And so it isn't like you're saying about sports. It's not a win-loss. It's not a medal, no medal. It's how did I improve? And I'm comparing to this ideal, of like who God's made me to be. Okay, cool. But like, will I ever get there? Well, the reality of it is probably not.
Yeah.
And like, then now I'm okay to be grateful with where I am.
Yeah.
And even be able to look backwards and go, wow, look what I've overcome.
Yeah.
And then recognize like, okay. And then now there's more.
Yeah. It puts the focus on the things that you can control. Right.
Yeah.
So when you have an outward view of winning and losing and you're comparing yourself to somebody else, you have no control over what that person is going to do,
Right.
the decision that they're going to make or any of the rest of that. You only can control the things that you can do, right? You can only make the decisions for yourself. You can't make them for somebody else. So when you're comparing yourself to somebody else, like it's a losing game at that point. And you're always going to lose because there's always going to be somebody better. There's always going to be somebody faster. There's always going to be somebody, whatever. I mean, think like the thing that sticks out the most to me about that is think about for how long, like nobody could run the 4-minute mile.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then the first time that somebody ran the 4-minute mile, right after that, a ton of people did, because it's the whole thing of belief of this is possible, right?
Totally.
Like you have to get to a place where you understand like, okay, this may not have happened before. And if I do this, somebody may come along behind me and beat this record. But if I was the first or what, it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like you're pushing yourself forward to do the best that you can do and like forget about the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. So if you reframe competition that way and you're just constantly improving, to your point, it takes a lot of pressure off. It makes it a lot easier for you to be more grateful for where you are, right? And to continue moving forward in that. So yeah, love that thought process. With all the businesses, and I mean, obviously Jake and I had a good conversation about the number of podcasts you guys have done and that kind of deal. It's impressive, like just how fast you guys have been able to do that one. But with all of those conversations and all the conversations within GTK and with different business owners, what's the one problem that you see kind of resurfacing with most business owners and entrepreneurs?
Man, that feels like a longer list than one. The first thing that pops in my mind is that we stop doing the things that got us success.
Yeah.
Like entrepreneurs generally are so, squirrel driven.
Yeah.
We're so new, shiny object driven. And so when something works, one, we don't build in the system to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, because we don't do step one, we then try something new. And whether that's, buying multiple businesses, whether that's doing the same thing, the same business, but then just trying it a different way, always iterating, innovating, and kind of get lost in just constant ideas. And that's tough because I'm an idea guy. I like shiny things. I like, I got a big capacity. I like to do multiple things at the same time.
Yeah.
I think success comes from like dialed in focus.
Yeah.
And even like when I look back at my own history, like, you know, I had in 4 years from 25 to 29, I bought and or started 7 businesses.
Yeah.
But they were all the same brand, you know, all different locations in different states even. And so there was its own challenges. I was the only one in the system, in the franchise system, buying locations in different states.
Yeah.
Everybody who had as many locations as I did they were all like in the same city, you know, like together, you know.
Yeah.
And a few of mine were, but then I skipped and jumped states, you know. And I remember people just like looking at me like I was crazy. And for all intents and purposes, I was. Right. So if I knew what I know now, would I have done those things? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But I at least kept the brain. Like there were certain systems and certain things that I was developing year over year over year over year that I could use and replicate. And because of that, over now 15 years, things are like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
You know, the systems work, the people are in place. I can reap the reward now of years of like real toiling.
Yeah.
And I think entrepreneurs often don't get to that place of the reaping. You know, we both know a gentleman up in Minnesota who has multiple businesses, and the last probably, 5, 6, 8 years, it has just been toil. And he's really taken a few of these brands to the next level.
Yeah.
But like personally over here, maybe even inside of the financial book, it's like, stress.
Yeah.
That's what most people don't know about a business owner is that maybe on the outside, all the branding looks nice and everything looks like money. but on the inside, he's sacrificed dramatically, And I remember telling him, that was probably 6 months or so ago, I was up there visiting him and I'm like, man, I'm so proud of you for doing the work and making the investments in the right places at the right time. I was like, but dude, the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15, 20 years, it's reaping season.
Yeah.
It's freaking reaping season. And what I see most entrepreneurs do is that's right about the time it gets hard. All the money I've invested, all the time, all the frustration. And it's just like, you know what? I'd rather sell it for nothing or give it away and start fresh because that feels easier to me.
Yeah.
As opposed to pushing through and getting over to the reaping season.
Yeah. And it's almost like you planted a whole field and then you just moved 2 counties over and you just left it. Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense to do that, right? Because like the whole point of planning and doing all the things that you're doing is getting to a place, to your point, where you can finally start to kind of pull those things in. And at that point, it starts to allow you to have a larger impact in your community. At that point, it starts to allow you to do things with your family and, some of those kind of things. So yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think there's some keys there around being intentional, but being intentional for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Right.
There's the consistency and the persistency part,
Yeah.
I know you and I both are big fans of Think and Grow Rich and some of the success principles in that book and others, but that persistent, consistent, like just hit the rock.
Yeah.
Just hit the rock.
Yeah.
Just hit the rock. You know? And most entrepreneurs are like, okay, bro, I hit the rock.
Yeah.
And there's another one over there I could hit. And there's a bigger spark over there, actually.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I know. But the work you've already done here is so important. Don't hear me and say in your mind, like, to never give up on things. You got to know when to take it out back and shoot it and move on, right?
Right.
And trust me, I've done that plenty. We got to know when the failure isn't a failure. It's a really big learning opportunity, but we got to move on. Sunk costs, get them out of the way.
Yeah.
Start fresh, right? Yeah. But generally speaking, man, that reaping, you kind of said it a minute ago. It's like I can set all these things up, but then if I never get to that place where I reap, then actually who loses is me. One, my health, my mindset, but then it's my family. It's my involvement with my community and my church. And so, if I'm constantly, innovating, starting a new business over and over and over and over and over again over here and constantly always in stress mode, then I never actually get the benefits of putting in systems and hiring right people. And just because you do those things doesn't mean it's perfect. You know that. I know that.
Right.
But man, you can get it to a place where it doesn't consume every part of your brain. Yes. Therefore, you have space to go deep in your marriage. Therefore, you have time maybe to go to your kid's ball game. Or I'm about to buy an 8-location vending machine business for my kids. They're 11 and under. It's like, I want to take a half day each week and do that with them. Right. Because of the things that we're going to teach them.
Yeah.
No,
that totally makes sense. And I mean, to your point, I think that the more that you're being intentional about that, the further that's actually going to progress those things in your life, right?
Right.
The more you're going to be able to do on the backside of that. I think there are so many pieces to that people just totally blow by and miss as far as taking the time to focus for a long period of time on something, right? We were talking earlier about just building the skills, right? So in last time you were here, when we talked on your show, we talked about just that whole kind of process of building skills and over a period of time, what that can do and that kind of deal. And for me, like the position that, the company's in and, going through that whole process of buying the company and doing those things, it comes out of a long process of building a skill and then moving to the next one, right? And then moving to the next thing and, that kind of deal. And focusing on something long enough to, whether you want to say master it or just get to a place where you're really good at it, right? Just creating that intention behind those things gives you the ability to make the better decisions, gives you the ability to see what's coming on the other side. There's just a lot that comes out of that. And that's just part of it is just experience and time. And I think a lot of people, especially today with the access that we have to everything, like, yes, can you start a business really quickly and can you do a lot of different things? Yes. And you can do them really quickly. You can automate a lot of things. You can put systems in place. But at the same time, for you to truly master those things, it's just going to take time. I can't think of hardly any business owner who just went out on their first venture and just killed it with everything. We talked about the 10,000 hour principle of doing something for 10,000 hours and actually mastering it and creating, because you're creating the persistence, right? It's like you're talking about just continually hitting the rock. You're creating like the mental strength and fortitude in yourself to continue to push forward. Because when you know this, like when you own a business, things don't get easier. It's like you're not going to hit a wall where all of a sudden it's like rainbows and butterflies and you're sitting on the beach every day. Like, could you potentially eventually get to that place? Absolutely. If you prioritize things a certain way and you do things a certain way, you can absolutely get there. But at the same time, like, it's going to take you time. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people kind of blow by. From the businesses that you've seen, what's one surprising technology that you've seen people implement that has made a huge difference in their business?
That's a really good question. The obvious answer right now is AI, and that, what does that mean, right? Someone the other day, I was reading a forum about some answers and her answer was AI. And then she came back and was like, well, what I mean by AI is this tool, which was, it has like components of AI, but it was just software, Okay. So I have seen some of the components that I think of as a business owner, especially like overworked, guy or gal wearing too many hats. It's the technologies that allow for streamless integration. One, like calendar systems to stay organized. Or a technology that allows for things to be done in faster time. For example, like in my construction company, we pride ourselves on being able to give the most detailed estimate and like thorough, professional. It's in a sales deck. It's got pictures. We oftentimes do even potential 3D renderings. And we're going to be the fastest to get it to them. So we'll meet with you today and potentially schedule that meeting for tomorrow or the next day and have the most detailed, most right? And before AI, it was like, that was a real task. But that we committed to because it literally separates us, right? But with AI now, that's like what took 2 or 3 hours per estimate is now like 15 minutes. So it's things like that where the regular Joe can implement things that just like all of a sudden took so much time before. Happens like this. Not to say I want him to wear multiple hats or her to wear multiple hats, but what I think the answer is the simplification, right? How can I take my overloaded schedule, my overloaded, disorganized everything and streamline it or organize it or make it more simple?
Are you guys doing that through your CRM or through a bid software or what?
So both. So we'll use like ChatGPT to be able to like, here's a previous example. Here's the recording of us talking about the measurements and the design ideas. And here's our whole interaction around like everything, the dream. And so take this previous example with the dream along with all the specifics and measurements and load it. And there's a couple of, prompts back and forth. It's just incredible.
That's pretty awesome.
I
hadn't thought about doing the recording piece of that. That's really interesting.
You just wear like a wearable plod. And it's amazing for one, how many sales guys, like don't catch everything. They're not detail oriented mostly. They're people oriented. And so to be able to have all that captured and then to be able to have AI take all of that and, many times have heard it's my partner that does it, but He's like, man, I remember them saying that, but I didn't remember them saying that.
Yeah.
But I saw it in the deal and I was like, oh yeah, like,
was it as big a part of the conversation as it should have been, right?
Right.
And we talk about that a lot in getting the requirements, like getting down to the base level requirement that a client has. What are they actually saying? What is their actual want? What is their actual need?
Yeah.
Because if you can identify that, and then to your point, if you can create like all of that material in the background of
Right.
and show them this is how we're going to get from where you are now to dream state, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge win.
Yeah. And they want to see it. They want to see like, because they can't see it, right?
Yeah.
They might have components of the dream, especially for remodeling, what you do.
Yeah.
Obviously the sales process is more geared towards, projects and stuff like that. But even in like, okay, so I'm selling a membership to a peer-to-peer group, that helps business owners and their families, right? Okay. So like I still have to be able to paint the picture of what does success look like? It's you tripling your business, working less, and winning at home and having an incredible marriage and having, kids that respect you and want to be with you and be in the business.
Yeah.
And I have to be able to paint that picture in a way that is the same thing that you would do for your client at the end. It's like, okay, well, what's the monitor look like and how does this interact? And like, you still have to be able to paint the picture, and using technology to be able to do those things is incredible.
Yeah. What do you think's been the most effective tool for you guys for getting that message out?
Yeah. I mean, podcast organically, and obviously then paid ads. There's lots of technology that go into paid ads, so that's kind of its own little category. But, I was reading a little synopsis on an influencer that I follow, and basically he was breaking down like, look, you can have an amazing business, but word of mouth is only going to take you so far. And so at some point you got to put your big boy pants on and you got to start, advertising to a pretty large scale in order to really do anything significant. And I think that there's just a lot of tools inside of that bubble that I would say, 9 out of 10 stay away from, because they never get to the place where they're like, okay, I'm willing to pay for this.
Yeah.
Because paid ads, in whatever type of business is scary. Like, I don't want to pay for leads. I don't want to pay for, and you have to have a really solid sales process. And like, there's things that go along with paying for advertising that make you not only a legit business, but also like, we should take advantage of this and not be losing money.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think for a lot of people, I think it feels like this, compared to like SEO in a way, right? Because a lot of people don't understand like, what is SEO actually doing and why does it matter? Like, what's the thought process behind it? Those kind of things. It feels like this, black magic voodoo thing that like I put money into and money comes out, to a certain extent.
Yep.
But it's like, if you take the time to understand like what's happening behind that, with the psychologies of things and how people are making those decisions, how you're getting in front of people, and then build that into your process, it can become a whole different deal. Are you seeing, from an advertising standpoint, since you mentioned advertising, do you see more interaction and more turnover in advertising from video ads that you've done, or from just plain text picture?
Good question.
Ads?
Yeah, the ugly text by far outperformed video, which is kind of wild.
That is interesting.
I guess it depends on what platform. Like, obviously, ugly text on TikTok doesn't outperform, but yeah, I think there's still very much a oversight to something that is simple, that people can read. Yeah. And because it's not so pretty, it catches people's eye. So it's like, 5, maybe more than that, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, advertising was about making it pretty, to make it stand out, right? To make it look legitimate and professional. But those things are so easy now to do. I can make anything look professional with an editor, And so to be different is the point. Yeah. Right? Advertising is to catch people's attention. Yeah. And so at least the game now, videos still very much work, and I think that they'll work for a very, very long time. But the ugly text ads still crush, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've been working on some stuff internally for some commercials we're getting ready to shoot, and I'm kind of excited to see how it turns out, because it's kind of that same thought process. It's like, how do you stop somebody long enough, like for the first 5 seconds, to get them to watch the rest of it, or get them to actually pay attention to what you're talking about, right? Because to your point, I mean, there's so much content out there. You have access to so many different things, and everybody is scrolling, and you see so many different advertisements and those kind of things. And so it's like, how do you break how do you break somebody's, stop on a scroll, or, like watching a video on YouTube or whatever the deal is, and get them to pay attention long enough for you to get in front of them? It's a huge deal. Do you feel like video in some of those formats is oversaturated at this point?
I don't know about oversaturated. I mean, I don't know how you would prefer to consume, but I'm a little bit of both. I like to scroll text and I like to scroll video. Yeah. I think that, folks younger than me, scroll video.
Yeah.
And so I guess it depends on who you're trying to target. Like, if I'm trying to target an entrepreneur that has kids that, to come to our family mastermind vacation.
Yeah.
A text or a video would probably work pretty good. If I'm trying to find someone who wants a luxury master bathroom remodel, that person probably would be text, maybe video.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking just like of age groups.
Yeah.
If I want to sell a pizza, probably video and about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And put it on Snapchat. So it's like, I think there's a combination of like, okay, well, what type of creative?
Yeah.
Who are we trying to go for? What's the avatar? And where do those people hang out? You know? So I think video is great. I think most people, I think it's just because everybody moved to video pretty massively.
Yeah.
Then people kind of forgot about the text.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, the people that still have the money.
Yeah.
They still like to read.
Yeah. Well, that's true. You're absolutely right. We were having a conversation earlier with Jake and talking about the progression of all of these things and how people have forgotten getting back to the basics of literally just knocking on somebody's door or going and having a conversation with somebody, right? So we're all worried about advertising and, doing all of this other video work and these other things. But at the same time, some of the things that may work better is actually just going and getting in front of people, right? And having a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see kind of how all that plays out over the next little bit with AI and, being able to build some of those lists. But at the same time, to your point, building content and doing it in a way that catches somebody's eye and, breaks their attention for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, technology.
Yeah.
And I think most podcasters just go, okay, I think a podcast is important, right? That's what everybody's telling me, right? Okay, I should have a podcast.
Yeah.
Cool. And so I knew I had to have a podcast. Plus, I've been told I have a podcast voice. So I'm like, okay, great. You got to have a podcast. So we launched a podcast to do what I'm supposed to do, but I really I didn't know what it was going to be.
Yeah.
I know now, and I can tell someone, okay, before you start that podcast, who specifically you're trying to talk to, who's the audience, there's probably some just intentionality.
Yeah.
Luckily, we kind of just stumbled into it. But for us, it was meeting, shaking hands. Who is a successful business owner that likes to meet up with other successful business owners and talk about success and what's winning, what's working, what's not working. And, what better way to get in touch with that person than to invite them on a show? Now, I didn't know that. I'm just like, hey, you want to come on a show? You want to come on? I'm interviewing successful people, Yeah. And as I got to know people over conversations like this, their response was, so what's this group thing that you're doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, you're interested in that? I was thinking the audience was my audience.
Yeah.
The person sitting across the table was my audience. Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Which is now fine. So now I can add value to them. And it's a no pressure situation.
Yeah.
If they like me, if they like the vision of what we're doing, then it works.
Yeah.
If they don't, it's not a big deal. But that's just another example there of being able to recognize who the target is or who the avatar is and going, okay, well, where do they hang out and how do they like to hang out?
Yeah.
The person that likes to be in a room of other entrepreneurs talking success and how do I win in my family, and they're willing to hop onto a call for 45 minutes and record their story because they want to share with other people.
Yeah.
Even if they've never done it before.
Well, and I think there's, at a base level, a lot of people, to your point, they'll get on a call like that because they want to share what they've done because on a certain level, they're proud of what they've done as an individual and the business that they built, right? And they want to share that. And a lot of times, unless you've created a platform or unless you've gone out and done your own show or just something along those lines, people don't always get the opportunity to share that story, right?
Right.
And so when you do get the opportunity to share that story, you're more, involved and you want to do that, right? Yeah. You want to get in front of other people and, to say, look what I built, right? Yeah. Because people are proud of the things that they've done and which is, credit to them for doing that, for building a business because it's not easy.
Nope. And they deserve some kudos.
Yeah. I mean, that's for sure. What platform have you guys seen the most interaction on?
Yeah, I would say the distinction is going to be the product that we're advertising. And so organically, I am 38. I'm a millennial, but not a young millennial.
Yeah.
And my avatar is people who are probably 30, maybe a little younger, probably not. And then to, 60, right? 30 to 60. This entrepreneur who has a family, who's married, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not everybody fits into that perfectly, but you get it. And so that person is going to interact on social media like me, which is most likely on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so engaging organically on Facebook is just naturally what I do.
Yeah.
But then it's just naturally who I'm going to connect with is the people that are like me because I am my avatar.
Yeah.
for our kids stuff that we do, like when we run ads for, how to build your first business as a kid's guide, or, how to market your business as a kid guide,
Yeah.
For $4.95.
Yeah.
Every time we run those ads, and whether we get new leads or new sales, my Instagram profile grows in followers.
Interesting.
Wild, like every day, like multiple,
interesting,
like massive growth of the followers on Instagram when we run the kids ads, but not necessarily from the Family Mastermind Vacation ads.
Interesting.
Family Mastermind Vacation, I feel like we get leads from both Instagram and Facebook. We don't run anything on TikTok currently, although I think we could. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of what product, who the end user is,
and then what platform they're on.
Yeah, I don't. That's a little bit of black magic in there, like you said. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like it's funny because it's like you think about like, okay, well, who's the person that I want to catch up with, or that I want to talk to, or that I want to get in front of, and then like to your point, like what platform are they on?
Right.
It's thinking those things into consideration, I think makes a whole lot of sense. So, What is the one technology you're the most excited about right now? Ooh. Not AI.
Not AI. Yeah. It's so funny because I don't really consider myself a very tech forward person.
Yeah.
I'm not behind. I don't think I am. I'm not stuck in the mud. Let me say it like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the cousin of AI.
Okay.
And say automations.
Okay.
Because, gosh, man, I think there are so many areas of my life that, one, I have automated.
Yeah.
And then two, that still need to be automated. And every time I think that you create, the chaos into 7 steps, it probably only needs 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take AI and you're like, okay, well, actually, it only needs 2, and you don't actually need any employees, or maybe just 1 instead of 4. So I think automation as just a whole, maybe not necessarily the software that does it, but just the concept and then the tools to streamline and simplify and make things go faster, better, stronger, without any additional work.
Yeah.
Like that to me is the leverage of automation. And I think that was the word before AI was the thing. It was how do I automate?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a thing for a minute. Even going to like into factories and stuff, like they're trying to figure out how do we automate processes. And,
exactly.
All those kind of things. So,
and whether you're building out a technology inside of a manufacturing plant to be able to produce a product faster, or I'm just using Zapier to make sure that 17 emails follow up after the lead's generated.
Yeah.
Like, it's just things like that where you're like, I don't have to send the email. No one on my team has to send the email. In fact, nothing has to happen. I set it up once. The lead comes through. It gets automatically attached over here. Then it gets this email, and then it gets this email. And if they say unsubscribe, it automatically unsubscribes. And if they don't, they get another one and another one. And it tells them to book a call. And like
on the for that, would you say that that's probably been one of the most beneficial automations that you've done?
Yeah. I mean, your lead nurture. I mean, now we're just sales and the whole process. I love, but I mean, you gotta touch that lead like you're buttering a turkey. I mean, you gotta be all over it.
It's interesting to think through this because, like, thinking through what you're talking about from an automation standpoint and the AI and kind of how you guys are doing proposals, you're touching technology all along the process where you're creating the recording of the walkthrough with your client so that you can then transcribe that, feed that into the system so that it spits out, hey, here's your work narrative or scope of work or, whatever's going on, and then creating that whole kind of process all along the way, right? So there's so many different pieces that I think in business, I think some people sidestep some of those things. I think there are a lot of things that people don't consider, like what could you automate to make your life easier?
Yes.
What other tool could you use to make your business more efficient? To your point around the estimates and getting them back in front of people, the whole speed to lead thing, right? It's amazing to me that, when we get a lead in, when we return a phone call, like one of the first things that people always say, especially if it's within the first, 5 to 10 minutes, people are like, man, you guys are fast, like what the heck?
Yeah.
Like I didn't.
Or the fact that you called me at all.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're fast.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes a huge difference in their overall perspective, I think. But it is interesting that I think a lot of people don't think about that. They don't think about, like, can I automate the process of following up with somebody so that it doesn't fall off the plate, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't fall off the edge, and then it's gone, and I can't ever get back with that person, right? Or whatever the deal is. I think there's a huge piece to that.
Yeah. There's a question in there that you asked that I just want to highlight for the listener. Because again, even though I'm over here talking like automate, I'm the guy that's like, I don't know what to automate next. I try to get around guys like you and other people that are doing things, and I listen and I try to ask questions, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, you just heard me say that we get, estimates out within 2 days. You're doing it within 7. The difference is that, and like, okay, so go back to the drawing board and figure out how you can get faster,
Yeah.
or ask me some more questions. But I try to do that for myself. But I was just talking to an automation specialist just the other day, and I'm like, dude, I need you to I don't even know.
Yeah. You don't know what you
I
don't know.
know that I know that I know that it should be done,
Yeah.
but I don't know what actually needs to be done.
Yeah.
So I think that might just be a good place to start is go, okay, I know I need to automate, and don't just like let that come in one ear and out the other as far as like, oh yeah, it's just one of those buzzwords, automate my business.
Mhm.
It's like, no. Contact someone, or reach out to us, gatheringthekings.com. I've got a guy who
Mhm.
I work with, and it's like, you have to have somebody to look at the process of your business and go, well, those 3 things you don't need, or that can be summed up in one little,
Yeah. Well,
automation.
it's interesting because I think part of the deal for us, like when we actually went through and like charted out our business and said, this is what it looks
Right.
like from start to finish, right? Until you actually go through that process, you don't even really know what you could automate. You don't know what you could do to save time. You don't even know where you're losing money.
You don't even know the details of your own business.
Exactly. It's like you don't even know the whole function of your business at that point. And until you actually go through and map it out. And this is, I think, something that people miss, pretty consistently is not mapping out the process of your business. You'll probably save 25% just by mapping the process. Because when you go through and like start with like from like you're talking about from the lead, how do I follow up with the lead? Who's following up the lead? What does all that look like? What are the steps of that process? When it moves to implementation, what are the things that we're doing? Until you map all of that out and can see it from end to end, right? You're not going to know the things that overlap and the places that you're spending money that you shouldn't be spending money, or the
Yep.
places that you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing.
Yep.
Or you're still like a good example, like what we found was we identified a couple of different areas where we were paying a resource a much higher rate to go do a job that a resource at a much lower rate could go do.
Yep.
Right. And accomplish the same thing. Quality doesn't change.
Right.
Delivery is the same. There's no real difference there. But internally for the company, it's a huge benefit because you're not spending as much money to accomplish the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You're saving your revenue, you're saving your margin, you're saving all of the rest of those things to put aside just simply by looking at the process, right? Not even implementing any of the tools that we're talking about, not even doing any of the technology stuff or any of the rest of that, but just at a very basic level from a business standpoint, identifying those things and then identifying the overlap and then pulling the overlap out.
Yeah.
Right. It's amazing like what you can what you can accomplish.
This is what you do in your business too. I know I'm kind of segueing slightly off track, but in your business, you kind of help people do the same thing. Not necessarily that you're like identifying their client journey.
Yeah.
But it's like, how can you come alongside them with technology? So it's like, okay, well, what are all the steps?
Right.
What are all the pieces that are needed? What's needed, what's not needed, and how can we either streamline or professionalize or make you look better, with technology, with a video board or with, communication technology. It's like, how can we take a look at each individual step? A lot of times it's in their operation.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's in the sales process too,
Yeah.
You take a look at the whole business and go, how do we infuse your product?
Yeah.
But really it allows them to be able to look the best, to sound the best, to be their best,
Yeah. There's a huge component to that. And I think it's like we talked about earlier, getting to the base level requirement for somebody. And you guys run across the same thing in the construction side, right?
Right.
So you've got to get to a place where you fully understand what is the desired outcome. And then how do I get them there as efficiently and fast as possible, and then it's the same thing. If you're identifying, like, here's the roadmap to get to your ideal state, right? Whether you're in technology, doing what we do and putting messages in front of people, or if you're building a house for somebody, or you're remodeling a house, or you're, putting a roof on somebody's house, whatever the deal is, you've got to go through and be able to identify that whole process for your business and then overlay that whole customer experience over the top of it to say, okay, what are the areas that we can make the most impact in and do it as effectively as possible? It's a huge, huge deal. I think a lot of people miss that from a business standpoint. The trick in all of those things is, identifying the problems that you solve. And to be honest, for us, I think in our industry, actually identifying real problems, not identifying problems that we've created or problems that, we've said, oh, this is an issue because wouldn't it be great if you could do X, Y, or Z? Like at some level, people have to move beyond creating a problem then to solve it. Right. Like you've got to figure out a way to kind of cut some of those things out. And we talk about this all the time on the shows, just the exposure to so much content and so much media and so much everything that we have access to on our phones and internet and everything else, making it very easy to find out when somebody's authentic and when somebody's not.
Yeah.
Right? and being able to see the difference between that, because like we're all, whether we realize it or not, we're all being sold. Like
all the time.
So, sooner or later, one way or the other, billboard, advertisement, social media, video, whatever it is, you're constantly being positioned to be sold by multiple different people, right? And I think really genuinely coming alongside a client and saying, okay, what is it that you actually want to have happen? Where does this need to go? And then to your point, charting that course as efficiently and effectively as possible. That's paramount. That's the main thing. So
that's how you win.
Yep, absolutely. Chaz, thanks for coming on the show.
Dude.
Really appreciate the time. This is a fantastic conversation. Yeah, it's a fantastic conversation. Tell people where they can find you guys.
Yeah, gatheringthekings.com. You can take a look at our peer-to-peer group, but as well as stuff that we do for families.
Yep.
Got our family mastermind vacation coming up next summer. That'll be 2026, and we'll be in St. Lucia.
Awesome.
About 95% chance.
That's
about
awesome.
Contract on that. And so, yeah, it'll be exciting. And we do plenty of other things throughout the year to support the families. We've got a youth entrepreneurship program called Generation Next, but you can find all that at gatheringthekings.com.
Good stuff. Thanks for coming, man. Appreciate it. Good to see you.